Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I am proud, excited, and thrilled to introduce the new iteration 4 C7 Z51 Corvette. We're going to be breaking down everything I've done throughout the time I've owned this car. So first things first, iteration 4. What does that mean? Well, it's the fourth let's call it generation of mods I've done to this Corvette since I've owned it. And iteration 4 consists of a heads cam intake setup. Heads, they are still the stock heads, but they're ported now. Cam, it is a stage 4 cam. I might add the specs of the cam below. It's aggressive, but not unreasonably aggressive. It still has some drivability. And then the intake, of course, we're rocking an OEM location intake manifold. It is the MSD manifold. It is ported. Not that that does very much, but of course, it is still heavily restricted on top RPMs. Unfortunately. There's going to be a dip in the graph that we may or may not show a picture of. But that is, you know, the name of the game. Once you start getting past 7,000 RPM, the car runs out of air. You know, we run into limitations of how much a heads can float. And as we know, LT1 heads, even when ported and milled, like mine are, they're certainly not LS7 heads. They're certainly not Frankenstein heads. There are limitations to the flow they have. So it's a heads cam intake setup, and it is I guess we can say full bolt-ons. I wouldn't say it's full bolt-ons, you know, besides maybe a pulley I could do, but it's as close to full bolt-ons as it'll get. I am running flex fuel, so I can run full E85, 93, and a mix of that. So I'm not ghetto and just tuning for E85 like before. I actually have a sensor now. And more importantly, we have a built stroker. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we officially aren't a 6.2 liter V8 anymore. We are now a full 7 liter V8. 427 built stroker. And that consists of forged internals. All the rotating assemblies forged, and the motor is built to withstand 1500 RPM. 1500 horsepower. Before, under a cam full bolt-on E85 setup, it made 580 wheel horsepower, 515 wheel torque. On a dyno that reads stock LT1s anywhere between 370 to, at most, the most fucking crazy stock unicorns they've ever seen, 390, with the norm falling somewhere in between, like 380. And as we know, that is a very conservative dyno. Most dynos read these cars stock at around 420 wheel horsepower. A lot of famous YouTube channel owners who have dynos and modify their cars, you know, they dyno way higher than on this dyno. Mind you, that dyno was done during the middle of summer, and guess what? The new dyno is done during the beginning of summer. So it is kind of apples to apples under the conditions. The DA was horrible. It was like 90 degrees when they did back-to-back pulls. And as you know, fans around the dyno are not going to really simulate what it'd be like driving 165 miles per hour, feeding that fresh air into the car. The new numbers are way better, but it's not just peak numbers that matter in racing, ladies and gentlemen, because I gained power literally everywhere in the RPM. I made insane power. So peak numbers, if you were to just look at peak numbers, you'd be like, oh, okay. I mean, there were some gains, but you know, it wasn't this huge difference. But dude, this car drives so much better now. With iteration 3, which was the cam 4-bolt-on E85 setup, the 580, 515, and you know, it felt like the low to medium power band was just very weak because the aggressive cam shifted it all up top, and it felt like that punch that I was used to was gone. It felt like a Mustang. If you've ever driven a Mustang GT or the Voodoo engine, the 350R, you know for a fact that you have to rev them out to get power. You don't have a lot of torque in that car to begin with, so to really get that power to pass people up, you have to rev the car out. And it felt very similar to that, and because of the cam, and thanks to the stroker, to more displacement and the pistons and whatnot upgrade, I got basically all of that low to mid power back, with the addition of my top end being even better now. The torque gains were absurd. They were absurd, ladies and gentlemen. At some points in the RPM, I've literally gained over 70 wheel torque, which is crazy. It truly transformed how enjoyable of an experience this car is. I no longer feel like I have to rev it out to really get that oomph. I feel like I have that oomph everywhere, dude. Everywhere I have that oomph. What I really enjoy the most about this stroker is that when I go to shift gears, being that this is a Z51, not a base Stingray, so the gear ratios are different, and most of the time when I shift from 3rd to 4th, I would land in 5500 RPM, and it felt like it was just shy of where I wanted it to be. And now when I land at 5500, in other words, whenever I shift gears, dude, I feel like I'm flying, dude. I can't put into perspective how I don't feel the need to rev the car out, because even just shifting gears and being at a low RPM, like, it just has that extra power. While before, when I shift the gears, I felt like, okay, I shift the gears, I've slowed down, I'm building, finally I'm where I'm at. While this is, I shift the gears up, holy shit, I'm fucking flying, dude. And it's only getting faster. I feel the torque and power just increase. So the sensation was crazy. It was exactly what I wanted iteration 3 to be. So I feel like iteration 4 and iteration 3 need to be combined together for you to get that effect. And we're pushing C6, Z06, LS7 head cam intake stroker numbers. We're pushing crazy numbers, all naturally aspirated. Fuck, dude, I'm so happy with how the car performs. And it's not like a turbo fucking turbo torque. It's so progressive. Make no mistake about it, the new additional torque is gonna spin the fuck out of the car if you're not intelligent with how you do shit. But it isn't absurd. Turbo cars just dump the torque like it's ridiculous. Especially you know what, fucking especially twin screw superchargers. They be doing the same shit. They dump all their torque and power way too early, and it's just it's a nightmare to put down. But this is still naturally aspirated. The buildup is just so perfect, dude. I can't describe the feeling of how this car drives. It just builds up so smoothly now. Even from low RPM, you're fucking flying, and you just feel how it's just getting faster and faster and faster. At no point do you feel like it drops off. Even though the graph, there is still that drop off from around 6800 to 7200. You still have that drop off, because around that RPM range, and unfortunately the car runs out of air. There's no more air to be had, and the intake manifold with the short runners are very restrictive. The LT1 heads, despite being ported and milled, are restrictive. It's not getting enough airflow. And while the car, thanks to the forged assembly, can rev basically over 8,000 RPM if I really wanted to, and there's absolutely no point in revving higher if you're already running out of steam around 6800. The dips begin. So of course, iteration 5, if I keep it naturally aspirated, aftermarket heads and a high ram manifold would be necessary to get that extra top end power. But I'm not sure the car needs that. It's a very light car. We're talking about high 3,200 pounds. There's no real need for more power NA. At this point, you're running into diminishing returns. As we all know, the NA game is very expensive. It's not like Boost. Boost is such a cheat code, but it also ruins the car's personality. I fucking love how it is naturally aspirated. Boost would only ruin the driver's car, because this is a driver's car. Man, a 7-liter V8 with a 7-speed manual at high 3,200 pounds. Like, dude, I can't describe, with a supercar wide chassis, perfect fucking ratio 50-50 weight distribution. Like, this, it's just so enjoyable. Why would you ruin it with Boost that would just fucking the turbo surge or the supercharger surge would ruin the distribution, the balance. You could literally beat the shit out of this car and it doesn't even get hot. Like, I just can't justify doing the Boost method, even though that would have been the cheapest route. The cheapest route, which is the least expensive route, what most people do is they do full bolt-ons, and they do a bunch of fueling, which honestly is not even a bunch. It's just doing the injectors, the high pressure fuel pump, and sometimes a low pressure fuel pump, and they add a pro charger. And that setup alone, you could limit it tune to about 650 horsepower, 650 wheel torque, which is where the stock pistons are kind of at their limit of safetiness. You push anything above that, you're risking blowing the motor up. And it's actually very cheap to do, dude. It's very cheap to do. It's literally adding injectors, fuel pumps, and the pro charger itself. And it doesn't even need to be a high-end pro charger. Basically any run-of-the-mill pro charger will do. And yeah, you'll be significantly faster. 650 wheel compared to the stock 370, 380. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's the cheapest route to make power on the C7 LT1s. That's literally what most people do. I've taken my build a different route. As we know, naturally aspirated, it is far more difficult getting that kind of power out of an all-motor car. But that's what makes it so rewarding, dude. There's so many supercharged Vettes. Most of them are. Fuck, most of them come supercharged. You feel me? But an all-motor Vette that's distributed so perfectly, balanced so well. There is no need to wait for boost. There is no fucking crazy boost surges that just ruins your traction. It's just so perfectly balanced, dude. I fucking love the NA game. But of course, with NA, you eventually do run out of air. You know, at the end of the day, turbos and superchargers are just feeding more air into the car. And at one point, you will run out of air. But we got to put things into perspective. This car is pushing well over 600 horsepower now. To the crank, it's pushing, I think, 709 horsepower to the crank. Not to the wheels, but to the crank. At that point, ladies and gentlemen, in a light, ultra fucking slippy chassis that just cuts through the wind like a hot knife through butter, it feels like a fucking... It feels insane, undescribable, bro. Indescribable. To put it into perspective, ladies and gentlemen, Hellcats come stock with 700 to the crank. This thing would put such a beating on a fucking Hellcat, dude, that it wouldn't even be... It would be a colossal waste of gas to do, bro. This thing would beat a 900 horsepower fucking Demon, dude. A Dodge Demon, bro. It would beat that shit stock. Because again, that's 900 horsepower to the crank. They're really making sub 800 to the wheels. And, you know, their cars are like almost 5,000 pounds. And their coefficient of drag is fucking like a big box. And at high speeds, coefficient of drag matters, man. And this thing is just such a fucking slippery car. The aerodynamics are crazy. So when you put into perspective that not everything is horsepower numbers, there's a lot more than just peak numbers. It's how the graph looks, how the car puts down the power, the gearing, the coefficient of drag, the whole lot. When you put that into perspective, this car is on a league in its own. As simple as that. It's in a league of its own. And, you know, I'm very content with how the car is performing. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, the footage you're seeing right now is during the break-in. I was breaking in the new motor, so I was limited to 3,500 RPM. And the throttle was heavily reduced, so I couldn't go fast. I finally got the car back yesterday by the time I filmed this, and man, fuck, dude, it was it just shocked me. It put a smile on my face. It's exactly what I wanted the car to be. Will I continue maxing out the NA journey? I might. I might. I don't know if I really want to cut my hood and add a high ram, but you know, heads might be justifiable because eventually, if I decide to go with boost, some really nice heads would pair up nicely. That being said, I have a race scheduled against an 800 plus horsepower Camaro SS, and again, the baboons who don't know anything about cars are already writing that off. They think that's going to be an easy race for the Camaro. They have absolutely no idea. And I don't judge them, man. I get it. Most of these motherfuckers don't even know anything about street racing. They drive slow ass cars. How could you know? But power to weight ratio, aerodynamics, and how the graph looks and putting the power down, etc., is gonna matter. And my prediction for that race, because I like to make predictions the same way I made predictions when I raced a Honda. My predictions for that race, since we're doing a roll race, and if he doesn't have any sort of anti-lag or brake boosting skills, because his Camaro SS is not fully reliant, but mostly reliant on a giant turbo, and the beginning is gonna look really bad for that dude. I'm gonna take off in the beginning in a way that that dude does not expect. I'm gonna be ahead at the beginning, and if the car really is pushing over 800 wheel, then he better make a fucking comeback around 140, 150 miles per hour. And if he really is 800 plus, he better win that race. Like, there's no reason why he doesn't win that top end. If I wanted to be a little bitch, I'd hit the brakes at 130, 140, and I bet absolute fucking bills that I'd win that. But again, top end, if I'm really down close to 200 wheel, you better have it. You better have it. My prediction is that there is no dimension where that race isn't close. It's going to be fucking side by side at some points in time. And I think low end, I'm going to really humble that motherfucker. I think top end, it's going to be the question of how accurate are his claims. Is he sandbagging it? Is it really 900, 1000? Or is he exaggerating? Is he closer to 700? And that's going to determine what happens. But I am looking forward to that. So my prediction is it's going to be a driver's race. And if he's not really 800 wheel, I'll just about edge it out. If he is 800 plus wheel, he'll edge it out at the top end. But there's no dimension where it isn't close. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, lots of videos to come. I'll include more stroker vids soon. Have a good rest of your day. Bye bye.